reminds you the following terms in your oath of office before you assume the office to discharge the functions of senators. You have to bear.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I've just been watching the motion of impeachment of the Deputy President in the Kenyan Senate, and I feel it's time that we should talk a little about the office of the Deputy President, not necessarily dealing with the ongoing impeachment process. So the question that we are asking ourselves is, what is the office of the Deputy President? How do they come into office? What are their functions? What are some of the ways through which they can leave office? And should one leave office, how can they be replaced? So we'll go into those details in a manner that is more concise and understandable to us as members of the public. Now, a Deputy President is a position that was introduced into our legal systems by the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which established the office as opposed to what we had before when we had a Vice President. Just to give a short background, a Vice President under the old Constitution was appointed by the President after he was elected from amongst the elected members of Parliament. And due to the tokenism that was seen in those days, our new Constitution changed all that, introduced the office of a Deputy President, who is elected together with the President, established under Article 148 of the Constitution of Kenya. Now, how is the Deputy President elected? A Deputy President is nominated by any candidate who is vying for presidency from amongst people who are qualified to be president themselves. And maybe at this point we can say, what then are the qualifications to be a president, or for this matter, a deputy president? And the main qualification is that this person must be a Kenyan citizen by birth. Secondly, they must be registered as a voter in any constituency within the Republic of Kenya. Third, this person must be of sound mind. Fourth, the person must be a person who is qualified with some kind of education that has been agreed upon by an act of parliament. Currently, it is prescribed that the person must hold at least a degree from a recognized university. And further, the person should not be bankrupt. Finally, this person should not have been convicted for any crime under the Chapter 6 of the Constitution, that is the economic crimes, the integrity crimes, as prescribed under that chapter. Now, once those qualifications are fulfilled, and the person nominated by a candidate vying for presidency, they are elected as a unit during a presidential election, which, if you can recall, is on the second Tuesday of every August in the 5th year of the life of Parliament. Now, we have elected our Deputy President. What then are his functions? Or rather, before we go to the functions, how does he assume office? As a public officer, he first has to take an oath of office. And the Deputy President takes 2 oaths of office. The first one is the oath of allegiance to the Constitution, and the second oath is the oath that is going to diligently perform the duties of his office. Worth noting, this oath must be taken before either the Chief Justice or the Deputy Chief Justice. And just a little ride on the same, it has to be taken between the time of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on the designated day. Now, our Deputy President has taken an oath. and he's in office, what then are some of his functions? You can start by saying that this is an office that does not have any defined functions given in the Constitution, because his main function seems to be the principal assistant of the president to perform the duties that are assigned to him by the president, who can assign some of his functions to him, to act in the absence of the president when the president is either out of the country or the president has a temporary incapacitation, or in any other situation where the president designates him to act as such. Maybe when the president takes a leave. Of course, to put into context, we have not had a situation where our presidents take leave, but it's something that is there in there. As human beings, the leave can come. Soon we might be having a female president, might be wanting to go for maternity leave, which can't be avoided. A deputy president can act during that time. Now, those are the functions of a deputy president. And as you can see, basically is doing, it's like a switch. When the president says do this, that's what they do. If the president gives them no function, then basically they don't have any other role to do, apart from maybe waiting with tongue in cheek for the president to die or to leave office so that they can assume the role of a president. Because that is also one of the critical roles, that when a president has left office, then they can assume the role of the president. And of course, if the president had served for 2.5 years, they are deemed not to have served a full term. If they have not served for 2.5 years, they are deemed to have served a full term if they assume office then. Now, those are the functions of the deputy president. Then the next question is, how can the deputy president then leave office? Is there a way through which a deputy president leaves office? And the answer is, sure as noonday, yes. There are ways of him leaving, him or her leaving the office. And one of the ways is, as human beings, he can die. So when he dies, the office becomes vacant. Secondly, he can resign. When he resigns, the office becomes vacant. And a resignation has to be in writing, addressed to the president, and comes into force on the date and time stated therein. Or, if no such date and time is stated, then at noon on the day it is received by the president. The other way through which this office can become vacant is when the deputy president assumes the role of a president. Like I indicated earlier, if the president either dies or is removed from office under Article 146, then the deputy president assumes that office. So should that happen, then he will ascend to the presidency and the office becomes vacant. The other way through which, again, the office can become vacant is through impeachment by parliament. The last way through which the deputy president can leave office is through when he's incapacitated, or rather when he's removed by virtue of being unable to perform his duties physically or mentally. So maybe we can examine a few of those ways through which the deputy president can leave office. And there are others that don't need an explanation, because when someone dies, is gone, is dead. When he assumes another office, it's fine. But there are two that we need to give some slight explanation. And the first one is the one of impeachment. Now, what is impeachment? Impeachment is a process through which a public officer, in this case a deputy president, is removed by the two arms of parliament for some reasons given in the constitutions. And the reasons include, number one, is gross violation of the constitution. Number two is when there are serious thoughts that this deputy president could have violated either municipal or international laws. The third one is when we have gross misconduct. But one thing that we have to agree on is that impeachment is not purely a legal process. It is political as well as legal. That therefore gives the parliament leeway to decide what gross misconduct is, as long as they can convince the people that what we are saying is actually gross misconduct. So what is the process of impeachment then of a deputy president? And the process is as provided in Article 145 of the Constitution, where a member of parliament can bring a motion, a member of the National Assembly can bring a motion to the National Assembly. This motion must be supported before it is brought to the floor of the House by at least 1/3 of the members of the National Assembly. I believe we know that in our National Assembly we have 349 members. And therefore, when we talk of 1/3, it means the motion must be supported by at least 117 members of the National Assembly. Once the Member of Parliament gets the support and brings the motion before Parliament, the normal process of the motion will take place. It has to go through the public participation, it has to be read, it has to be debated. The Deputy President is equally given a chance to present his case before the National Assembly and defend himself. After that, a vote is taken, and when the vote is taken, then at this point, at least 2/3 of all the members of the National Assembly must support the motion. In our case, 2/3 of 349 comes to about at least 233 members of Parliament. So at that point of voting, two things can happen. Number one, the National Assembly can fail to get the 2/3 majority required, and that the motion will fail and the Deputy President will continue to be in office. Secondly, if the motion is supported by at least the 233 members, then the motion will have been passed and the next part of the process kicks in. And that part is the Speaker of the National Assembly has to forward the motion to the Speaker of the Senate within 2 days after the impeachment motion was passed in the National Assembly. Once we move to the Senate, the Speaker of the Senate has to convene the House within 7 days of receiving that notice from the National Assembly to sit, debate, and determine the motion. So we are now going to the Senate with the process. Like I said last time, the Speaker of the National Assembly has 2 days to forward the motion to the Senate. The Speaker of the Senate, upon receipt of the motion, has to convene a sitting of the Senate to discuss and determine the motion within 7 days. At the Senate, there are 2 ways through which this motion can be dealt with. One is through a special committee of 11 members. The second way is through the whole House hearing the matter. Now, if we go for a special committee of the 11 members, normally these members are appointed. It's an ad hoc committee appointed as and when the need arises. They will determine the impeachment motion. They will give the Deputy President a chance to be heard before them and then come up with a verdict. Now, they can come up with a verdict in 2 ways. Number one, they can say that the impeachment motion fails, the grounds raised are not substantiated, and if they come up with this conclusion, then the motion ends at that point, and the Deputy President continues in office, discharging his duties as Deputy President. If, on the other hand, they determine that the impeachment motion and the grounds have been substantiated, then they will recommend that the deputy president should be impeached. The matter comes back to the Senate, and the entire membership of the Senate again has another chance to discuss the motion, give the deputy president another chance to be heard at the Senate of the whole House, and then vote on whether to uphold that decision or not. And the voting has to be by 2/3 majority. So our Senate has 67 members, and therefore 2/3 would mean at least 47 senators supporting the motion. If they get that number, the deputy president stands impeached and ceases to hold office. If they don't raise the number required, then the deputy president remains in office and continues to discharge his duties. The second mode through which the Senate can deal with this matter is by the entire membership of the Senate constituting itself into a committee and hearing the matter, in which case the hearing will take place within a period of 48 hours, that is 2 days, where both sides will be heard, the side of the National Assembly who are the prosecutors and the deputy president who are the defense. They'll tender their evidence. They can be cross-examined and re-examined just like a normal court of law. And at the tail end of it, again, the voting is done, and the same process follows. To impeach the deputy president, the 2/3 majority must be attained. If they are not, that number is not attained, then he remains in office. And maybe at this point, it's also good to note that this is one of the only times where all the 67 senators in Kenya vote. Because in all other motions, they vote as county delegations, therefore only having 47 votes. But for this one, because a special motion of great national importance, all the 67 of them must vote independently. The other way, that's about impeachment. The other way I said of removing the deputy president that we can discuss a little is by removal on the grounds of incapacity. And these are only two grounds, either physical or mental incapacity. And in this case, again, a member of the National Assembly can bring the motion that the deputy president is either mentally or physically incapable of performing his or her duties. This motion, in this particular case, must be supported by at least 1/4 of the members of the National Assembly. So 1/4 of 349, like we said, comes to about 88, 89 supporting the motion. Then when it's brought to Parliament, it has to be supported by at least 1/2 of all the members of the National Assembly. Basically, it's a simple majority. And a half of 349 gives us about 175 members. If they pass the motion that the deputy president is either mentally or physically incapable of performing his or her duties, then again the speaker informs the Chief Justice of the decision by the National Assembly within 2 days. And the Chief Justice, or in his absence, the Deputy Chief Justice, shall form a tribunal to investigate into the incapacity. This tribunal will have the following members: 3 people who are qualified to be doctors, who will be appointed by the Kenya Medical and Dentist Practitioners Board. 2 members who are qualified as advocates of the High Court of Kenya, who will be appointed by the Law Society of Kenya. And 1 member who shall be appointed by the Deputy President, him or herself. And if they can't appoint this 1 member, then any member of their family can appoint the member of the tribunal on their behalf. Now the tribunal will investigate the matter and provide their report back to the Speaker of the National Assembly and to the Chief Justice. If they find that the grounds are not substantiated, the Deputy President continues in office, and that marks the end of that removal process. However, should they determine that this person actually does not have the capacity to continue holding the office, then again the matter goes back to the National Assembly, who votes on it again and again how to get that support of 1/2 of all the members of the National Assembly. And upon that motion passing, then the Deputy President ceases to hold office. Now finally, once a Deputy President has ceased to hold office in either of the ways that we have discussed, then the next thing that rises is, how do we refill this position that he or she was holding? Because as you all know, power abhors a vacuum. And the process of filling this position after this kind of a vacancy is that the President will nominate a person whom he or she feels should be the Deputy President. And of course, as we said, this person must meet the basic requirements of a president, as we had discussed earlier. This person who is nominated will be taken to the National Assembly. The National Assembly will discuss, will interrogate, and vet to confirm if he or she is actually qualified. And if they confirm he or she is qualified, then the name will be taken back to the President, who shall then cause a Gazette notice to be published, and the new Deputy President shall then take an oath to hold office as a Deputy President. Ladies and gentlemen, that is about the Deputy President. We'll discuss more positions in our future videos. Thank you.